With the Carolina Panthers now in full-blown off-season mode, the season doesn't stop here. It actually begins. And the Panthers have some very interesting dynamics that they must explore before the beginning of the fiscal year. And for the first time, the Panthers not only have the draft capital, but more importantly, the cap space to make some serious noise in the free agent market. Something that this organization has not been able to accomplish for a very long time. Want to find out what those conditions are and how the Panthers should use them? Stay tuned to find out on this edition of Growlin' and Prowlin'. Welcome back, Growlers. Thank you all so much for joining us here on this first edition of the off-season edition, if you will, of Growlin' and Prowlin'. Again, you are joined by me, Mr. CeeLo, and Panther Nation. I want to give you guys a huge growl out for making my third season a successful one. Many of you are still joining the show, and there are several of you that joined the show and the Growlin' and Prowlin' family, and I do not know who you are. So please do me this favor, guys. I tell you this at the end of the show, but I'm going to start telling you this at the beginning. Make sure if you join the show, you put your name down in the comments, as well as if you subscribe, especially. If you subscribe, make sure when you take that second and hit that subscribe button, you also leave a comment, whether it's on a reel or on a show. I want to give you a growl out because I am so gratefully appreciated. I want to be able to reach my milestone by the beginning of the next season because there's some great things I got planned for you. I know what you're going to say. You had this t-shirt ready since before this season. Yes, I have run into some serious difficulties. The design is ready. I just got to get it printed. And like I said, I want to have all my Growlin' Prowlin' family running around with it on so they can ask, what is it? But I want to take this quick opportunity to wish my brother and my niece happy birthdays. Their birthdays were a couple of days ago. Love you guys. I hope to be able to spend more time with you sooner or later. My little niece, she is not a teen anymore. She is a young woman. God bless you, and I love you, sweetie. Keep doing what you do at college. But let's get into it, you guys. We got a lot of things to take care of, and I'm going to give you guys, because you're going to hear about it probably for at least about a month. Well, maybe a couple weeks because free agency starts relatively soon. And want to give you guys a little layout as to what we have got going on. Because recently, we haven't really had a lot we could do as far as free agency goes. And, well, before we get started, I want to give a big growl out to Adam Thielen, who announced his retirement earlier. And I think we all owe him a lot because without him, Bryce's development wouldn't be where it is. He was great during his rookie and his second year. So much love for you at Growlin' and Prowlin', Adam. Good luck on your retirement. We wish you would have stayed because we certainly could have used your abilities here. But good luck to you in everything that you do, and God bless. Now, sorry about that, guys. I'm scatterbrained sometimes. Y'all forgive me, but you watched the show enough, you know that already. First thing we got to get to is understanding where we are financially. Tillis has done a good job coming in and understanding what needed to be done. Now, it's not all on him, but a lot of issues that we had within our cap and our financial issues dating all the way back to the very beginnings of just horrible decision making, not just necessarily with Matt Rule, but you guys get the picture. But we are projected to be one of the middle of the road as far as cap space goes. Currently, we're at 28.5. But given that the 2025 rollover could be anywhere from $18 to $24 million, which would put us over the $50 million threshold. And we could pretty much save anywhere from $13 to $20 million if we extend Taylor Moton, restructure Derek Brown's deal, and extend J.C. Horn. I don't think either one of those are a bad idea, especially Taylor Moton. Despite a few hiccups in his injuries, if you will, he still looks like one of the best right tackles in the game. I know a lot of you are going to say, well, you don't want to have his number on your books if he's not playing or if he decides to retire. Well, I look at it from this standpoint. I know year to year you could lose ability and it could leave you in a situation where you're paying a guy who's not on the roster. But Taylor Moton's earned it. He's been a mainstay and a big-time anchor for this offensive line, even when the team has not been very good. He was still very dependable, even though he got beat on a couple of plays this season against the much faster edge guys. But I still see him as a major force in the running game. And he's still pretty good against the pass rush. But anyway, that's going to put us roughly at about $50 million plus. That's not to say we can just go out here and spend crazy. Because we've got a laundry list of guys that we need to bring back. And of course, the number one is wide receiver Jalen Coker. And being a cokehead myself, this is a dude who has earned it. And needless to say, he has proven himself. And I've said this many times over. The best way you can help a Bryce Young's caliber is if you can get him as many guys that are going to go up and make plays. Jalen Coker has done that in his limited opportunities, more so because of Dave Canales. And yeah, I'm going to be critical of Dave Canales because, needless to say, he's got to come out of that whole I don't want to turn the ball over thing. Needless to say, in order for you to be great, sometimes you got to take risk. If you guys have been watching the playoffs, you've seen that. I get it. Sometimes they can haunt you. But Jalen Coker's a must. This guy must be signed. And needless to say, he's probably going to get middle of the road number one money. Because unlike Teteroy McMillan and Xavier Legette, this guy didn't get a 4-year deal with a 5th-year option. He was a rookie. He was basically, in a nutshell, a guy who was an undrafted free agent. And we snatched him up. But kudos to Dan Morgan for finding this diamond in the rough. He could very well be down in history as one of the great undrafted players of his time. We look at the list and I see guys like Rico Dowdle, who I'm pretty sure he's not going to want to come back and play second fiddle to, Chuba Hubbard, which I want to get to this point because I'm hearing a lot of people. Now, we're going to cover a lot in this show, you guys. I took offense to when he said what he said because, needless to say, he knew coming in here that he was going to be Chuba Hubbard's backup. This was not going to be a show where he had the keys. He took the keys from Chuba, and I'm going to be honest with you. His performance the last 8 weeks of the season was not all on him. A lot of it was on the fact that Canellis did not evolve with what defenses were doing. Preferably not giving Jimmy Horn the football in those reverse situations more. You have to be more deceptive when teams know exactly what you're doing. And unfortunately for Rico Dowdle, that didn't work. Now, of course, Chuba Hubbard would come in and he would perform at a much better clip. In many of the games, Chuba was averaging over 3.5 to 4 yards a carry, while Rico was stuck down below 2 yards a carry. Now, does that mean I think Chuba's the better back? No, I just think along the lines. I do think Rico was battling an injury because you didn't see him running with the the type of aggressiveness that we come to love and see from him, where he would make contact and drive through tacklers. And I think, like I said, ultimately it may come out that he was dealing with something. I mean, I hope that's what it was. But I think ultimately I will give a huge growl out to him. We're grateful for you, Rico. We wish you the best wherever you go. We're so thankful that you are a part. And listen, this is what we need to think of. Guys like Adam Thielen and guys like Rico Dowdle, these guys are the reason why we're at the point now where there's hope. You get guys like that who get you to believing, and they get you to one point. You set one goal, you reach it. You set another goal, you reach it. And it just becomes a continuous stepping stone. You've heard many people say success is about reaching stepping stones or reaching goals. You don't just jump out there and hit a goal out of the park immediately. So I hope wherever he goes, it works out for him. It would not surprise me if Dallas came calling, but I'm also hearing that Dallas is possibly going to draft Jeremiah Love out of Notre Dame. So that may not be a position he might want to, go with. Guys like Bryson Tremaine and David Moore, special teamers. I thought Bryson Tremaine was not utilized enough with his size. I honestly think Dave Canellis is afraid of Bryce throwing the ball deep with these big receivers. You can't be afraid. You gotta give your guys a chance. And I think over the summer, this really needs to be a point of emphasis, is Bryce getting the ball up high for these guys. Not throwing it out of bounds, but getting it where the guys can either back shoulder, go up for it. Because needless to say, these are mismatches, you guys. Most of the corners in the league, they don't have J.C. Horn and Mike Jackson's height and size. Mike Jackson goes 6'3", y'all. J.C. Horn is roughly 6'1", nearly 6'2". And guys, there are 3 guys in the draft that I absolutely am in love with that have that size. One of them, I'm going to give you a hint. He's probably going to be in the 3rd round. Right now, he's projected to be a 3rd round. He's out of Washington. But guys, I'm going to tell you something. If we can get 3 defensive backs along the cornerback room that are 6'2", 6'3" plus, like this kid out of Washington is, guys, you just don't realize many balls that Mike Jackson has batted away because of his length. Same thing with J.C. Horn. These guys' length are nightmares for wide receivers. And your receivers are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Just look at T-Mac. Look at Jalen. I mean, even Xavier Legette. Which, guys, we gotta let Xavier Legette, we gotta get off of XL's back. Because some of this is on Canellis, too. And some of this is on Bryce. But I think we should bring Bryson Tremaine back. David Moore's a savvy vet, but I think we're at the point now where we're good. And then we've got Jimmy Horn, whom, in my opinion, has done enough to win a roster spot. Then we've got tight end James Mitchell, whom, as I said, he's made some decent plays for us, but I don't see any need for him unless Jatavian Sanders is not on schedule with his rehab and is possibly going to be out for an extended period during the beginning of the season. Because I love what we have at tight end. And I'm going to get to a lot of you tight end haters out there later on. Just wait. Then, of course, we got Brady Christensen, whom, in my opinion, is recovering from his injury. Sign him back. No question. Sign him back. Yosh Nijman did a good job in relief. Unless we can't get Brady Christensen back, I'd say, unless nobody's really going to go after him, I'd say put him on the roster unless we're going to draft some guy in there, which the tackle class is kind of big this year. So if we see somebody that we like, I would preferably say if we don't get one of these tackles in free agency, which wouldn't make much sense unless Ikwanu Icky is not on schedule, and it's possible he may not be. A ruptured patella tendon is not something you just come back from in one season. I would say if we could and still draft a tackle, maybe get a 1-year rental if we need to. But needless to say, if we extend Taylor Moton, I really don't see a reason why going into free agency to make that kind of a sign knowing that you're going to have Aquanu on a pretty good franchise left tackle contract. You don't want to just start handing money over to players like that. You don't want to have 3 top-end tackles on the roster unless you can move one to guard, which you could do that with Aquanu if need be. Cade Mays is one of the top 50 free agents out there listed by PFF and ESPN. So Cade Mays did a pretty good job, but I don't think he's done well enough to warrant a big-time contract. If somebody else comes out there and wants to pay him big, so be it. I'll go through 2 guys that are in the center position that I feel like are capable of taking over that spot. And they're massive upgrades. No disrespect to Cade Mays, but I just think he was good enough for what we asked him for, and he did a good job. If he's not here next season, we wish him the best, and we thank him for his service and his play during his time in Charlotte. Then we reached the defense in LeBron Ray, who's had some splash plays, and if somebody wants to offer him more than what we're willing to, okay. Then you've got linebackers Travis Gibson, and Thomas Incoon, along with DJ Wanham. All 3 of these guys have done some, I would say, commendable jobs as far as making plays. Unfortunately, in this business, if somebody else wants to give you more money, you kind of have to go that route. Incoon had some really good plays on special teams. Gibson stepped in at times and made some plays. DJ Wanham was a guy that was signed to be that pass rusher. And unfortunately, he was not able to bring what Ichiro Avero was asking for, which was pressure. Now, some of that could be on him. I've heard guys like Nick Scorton and even Princely Emmanuel question the aggressiveness of Avero. I can't say I blame them. I mean, you're going to run a 3-4 scheme. You need to not know where the pressure's coming. It doesn't necessarily always need to be guys that are up there on the line or supposed to be on the line, like all tackles, edge guys. And we saw a lot of 4-man fronts from this football team this year, which is odd considering the base is 3-4. So I don't know if Ichiro doesn't know what he wants to do, or because realistically, when I see a 3-4, I get excited. I think about the 96, 97, and 98 Carolina Panthers with Lamar Lathan, Kevin Green, and Sam Mills and Carlton Bailey. Those guys. You had 4 guys that when they came, they brought the hammer. And needless to say, you don't really get that vibe that this is a true 3-4. Now, do I think Wanham would have been more efficient had he played in a traditional 3-4? He certainly was at Minnesota. And even Pat Jones. I think ultimately, Panther Nation, we need to go back and look. Minnesota's still able to get a lot of pressure. I just question what kind of 3-4 that Avero's playing. Because to me, we don't bring nearly enough pressure. And we definitely got the corners. Now, the secondary, the back end is up for debate a little bit. Trayvon Merrick is suspect in coverage, but he's a doggone good hitter and very good box safety. Lathan Ransom, it's like you got 2 of the same type of players. Ransom's a much better in coverage than Merrick is. But then you got who's also a free agent in Nick Scott, who became a better tackler over the season. But like I said, his whatever Ichiro Avero sees in him, I just hope he's a good guy, nice guy, but unfortunately he's not playmaking enough in this defense. Now, I'm not saying it because Puka Nacua was able to snatch an interception from him in that game, but he's just not that kind of dude that I see as being the type of free safety that is going to make a huge difference, in this type of defense. But he did play well this season. But back to the linebackers, you've got Chris Barnes, who had some good moments, especially on special teams, along with Claudin Sherrillis, who stepped in admirably for Trevin Wallace in several games, as well as Christian Roseboom. I think he's a guy we could definitely bring back if we don't get a big name in free agency. Now, Christian Roseboom is an interesting story because once again, he was a guy that was brought in after Josie to really back up Josie Jewell and Trevin Wallace. But that injury to Trevin Wallace and Josie Jewell being, dealing with those concussions, made him have to step in and be that starter, which he did an admirable job. It's just there are certain things. He's basically one of those guys I'm gonna tackle straight ahead. He's questionable in the pass game, even though he had a couple of good interceptions. He's just questionable. He had a great interception in that Rams game. Read it beautifully. Or was that the Buccaneers game? It was one of those games. He made a great interception. I just don't know if he's going to be what we need as far as playmaking. We need a playmaking linebacker because that defensive front does such a good job. When they hit hard. And when they don't make the play, it's, chaos. Roseboom's made some good hits in the run game and had a couple tackle for losses, but I think some of that has to do with Coach Avero. I mean, we could sit here and say a lot of things about Coach Avero as well as Coach Canales. So I think a lot of it is they want to be good, but they're afraid of failure. You can't be afraid of failure when you haven't achieved anything. I think ultimately you got to go out there like you got nothing to lose, whether it be defense or offense. A guy, in my opinion, who really needs to make this team and come back next year, Caleb Evans. The guy who balled out in the one game he played in, and I think he broke his leg. This dude is awesome. Do I think he's good enough to start? Debatable. I mean, you at least bring him back to play special teams and let him be one of the backups or a depth piece. Needless to say, this is the guy that he brought the heat at the cornerback position. This is a dude you cannot afford to let walk. And another guy that he finally started to get some notoriety, and I don't think this can be ignored. Isaiah Simmons. Most of you don't remember until they brought it up on the telecast. I was an Isaiah Simmons camp guy when we drafted Derek Brown. I was the guy that said Isaiah Simmons should have been the guy that we drafted as opposed to Derek Brown, because most of you don't remember. 6'5", ran a 4.39 40. Now, back then he was playing linebacker, but then he wanted to make that switch to safety. I was hoping, now this is something that I think the coaching staff should discuss. Maybe we could draft that DB out of Washington. But, see, Simmons is still young. I think he's 26, 27 years old. Has not had a lot of miles on that body since the first 3 years in Arizona. And he scored touchdowns, guys. I would seriously consider putting him as that big nickel safety. Or I would ask him, look, dude, we can go to a 3 safety set where you're playing the box and coverage at times. But it'd be short coverage because the guy can lay a lick. I think ultimately Isaiah Simmons needs to be re-signed. I think if Coach Avero stays, he needs to seriously sit down with this kid and teach him the ins and outs. Because Panther Nation, if we get Isaiah Simmons on the field, this guy could be the pass rusher we're looking for. Coupled with the fact that Nick Scorton comes back, Princely Emmanuel packs on a few pounds and is able to do better against the run. And of course the free agent acquisition that we decided to make, which I'm about to get to after this word from Loma Vita. Loma Vita presents Real Men of Genius. Today, we salute you, Mr. Smells Like You Just Wrestled a Bear guy. Others run from skincare. You grab it by the jar, stare it down, and say, moisturize this. While other men settle for lotion that smells like their grandma's guest bathroom. You reach for TF Man. Whipped tallow cream forged from beef fat, testosterone, and destiny. Because dry skin isn't a seasonal concern to you. It's a challenge. And TF Man is your war paint. Your elbows, sandpaper. Your knuckles, granite. Your face looks like it's been through 3 divorces and a chainsaw. But with one swipe of TF Man, boom! Hydrated, smooth, and touchable. Suddenly, the wife stops glaring, the girlfriend forgives you, and the mother-in-law finally says something nice. So crack open a jar, you rugged warrior, because thanks to you and Loma Vida's TF Man, your face can finally stop screaming. TF Man Whipped Cream Tallow. For skin tougher than your childhood. Moisture for men who don't moisturize. Back with you guys. I just wanted to throw something else in there by Isaiah Simmons, you guys. And I hope that the organization and Dan Morgan look at what kind of a impact this guy made. Now, most of you may not know, but Isaiah Simmons came off the edge on that block the other night. Last week. The reason why he's able to do that is because majority of the time you put your fastest players on that edge, and generally you put lighter tight ends, generally tight ends and safeties on those edges to block. He ran over that guy. And very rarely do you have guys of his freakish talent that can do that. Have the speed to get there and the power balanced out to get to where he needs to get to that quickly. He is a dangerous weapon to have. Which I still think Canellis and Evero, if he stays, they need to have a discussion about bringing this guy back. I'm going to fight for Isaiah Simmons because, like I said, the best thing could have happened was this guy went out there and made some plays. He made 2 of them in that game against the Rams. If you watch the last show I did, you guys know he had that big-time tackle on that punt return deep in the Rams territory. Then he had the block kick. Guys, it's imperative we bring back a guy who had a first-round grade and a top 10 grade, I might add. Jalen Coker ain't the only find, you guys. Isaiah Simmons was a first-rounder. If we can sit him down and get to him. With that being said, as I said, we've got $50 million plus if we do right. Possibly 60. We've got guys, in my opinion, that we need to sign back. I would say probably the one that's going to cost us the most will probably be Jalen Coker. I did not mention Sam Martin and J.J. Jensen, the punter and the long snapper, respectively. Their deals are coming up as well. I know a lot of you are going to say don't do that, but Sam Martin was huge for us this season. And you can't take away the job that J.J. Jensen has done. The long snapper is a huge underappreciated part of the team. So definitely want to get them to come back. You know, it's always difficult to try to break in a new long snapper when he does a good job. But I guess we could start with the 2 most pressing needs that the Carolina Panthers need to address. With us picking where we're picking in the high to mid 20s, people, we got to realize that while we could find a playmaker in this position, it's going to be highly unlikely. The Arvell kid out of Ohio State is ranked as the highest rated linebacker in this class, so more than likely he's not going to stay. As you're seeing this game evolve, guys, you're seeing more players that are either perfect for the passing defense, or you're seeing guys that are hybrids. Arvell's one of those guys. He's one of those type of guys. Now, he is kind of light. He's very, very instinctive against the run, but he had, as we saw in that game against Miami, bigger backs tend to break his tackles, or he just doesn't use good technique at times. So, but like I said, he's probably not going to be there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through just a few of the guys that we could snatch up in free agency. I'm going to start with the edge guys because ultimately, I get it. A lot of you are going to be like, oh, well, why are we snatching up? Now, there's going to be some... I didn't go to safety, you guys. I'll come back with safety in another show. But, guys, I love height at that safety position. I love height. So, y'all bear with me as I go through the 3 defensive edge guys that I think would be massive in taking in free agency. Now, many of you may know about Jalen Phillips. He was the guy that the Philadelphia Eagles traded for at the deadline in Miami when they were making their move. Now, do I ultimately think Jalen Phillips is going to get a payday? Oh, yeah, somebody's going to pay him, whether it's the Eagles. And if you look at it, he finished the year with 73 quarterback pressures. And when you look at the way the Panthers were unable to get pressure in a lot of ways, I think Jalen Phillips definitely is able to make an impact, given the fact that we have such a good defensive front. Now, the one mistake the Carolina Panthers front has to stop doing is when they pass rush up the field, they leave these big gaps for guys like Josh Allen to run through, Baker Mayfield. There has to be some type of communication that lets everybody know, okay, this guy's going up the field. Let's push the pocket. And the problem with Scorton, Pat Jones, as well as DJ Wanham, they weren't getting around the edge enough to force the quarterback up. You have to explode off that, and the tackle has to have you beat. Now, of course, the Panthers edge guys don't play wide 9s or wide 7s. And that may be something Avero may want to look at next season, because a lot of it, if you got guys that can beat them to that point. See, the tackle guys can't cheat. And I think ultimately what needs to happen is you need to have these edge guys out here, and you need to sneak those linebackers up in those gaps, those middle linebackers. Because what happens is you confuse the defense. You don't know who's coming. What I love to see is I watch the Vance Joseph's defense in Denver. I watch Flores' defense in Minnesota. They bring guys to the line. They make you guess who's coming. And that is hard for a line. Because you could have an overload on this side. You could have an extra 2 guys over here. And you ain't got but 1, maybe 2 guys over here. And somehow the line's got to account for that. And here's the other thing. You could have 2 guys on this side, but that guy over here is in a wide 9. That puts this tackle at a disadvantage. Now, I know a lot of you are going to say, well, didn't Philadelphia used to do that when Chip Kelly was there and it didn't work out so well? It didn't work out well because Chip Kelly was unable to get ahead a lot like he wanted. Look, this is a nightmare when you line up and these tackles are they can't line up a certain way. They have to line up on the line of scrimmage and they have to be side by side. That means you either have to bring a tight end who's going to have to eat that block from the beginning. You got to bring an extra tackle in or a guard. Unfortunately, I think Jalen Phillips is going to command something like Brian Burns did. I think you're going to end up seeing him command somewhere around $25 to $40 million a year. Yeah, that's right. He's going to command that kind of money, and somebody's going to give it to him. I don't know, and he's got the age at 26, but I don't know if Carolina's going to ante up anywhere from $20 to $30 million a year. When honestly, let's just say this free agency year could change the draft immensely. You could have teams going in with dire needs, like the Raiders at this point. If with Dante Moore coming back, it would surprise me if the Raiders went all in to go get Fernando. What am I talking about? The Raiders do have the first pick. It would not shock me if the Jets went all in to go get Fernando Mendoza. I think ultimately, when you look at where this team is, I think that the Jets would be better off. This is just me. And I made a reel about this on my other channel. I think ultimately that I would settle on beefing up my line with the picks that they have. Breece Hall's a free agent. They're going to have to figure out what they're going to do about that. I would imagine he's going to walk. And they'll probably take a running back, probably somewhere in the second or third round. But you have to address this issue. And this year's free agency has some really interesting players in this free agency. Guys like Malik Willis, whom in my opinion, Carolina missed out on. Great coaching has him where he is right now. There's Aaron Rodgers there if you want to go that route. Joe Flacco if you want to go that route. Mac Jones out of San Francisco may have played his last game. I think he played himself into a good position. But you also got these two quarterbacks with great coaches and great offensive minds carrying them as well. So you take that at your own risk. But I think the free agency could change a lot of situations. Like the Raiders do have a certain amount of money. They could very well land one of these guys, and that would leave somebody like maybe a Reuben Bain available. But I got a feeling there's some tackles in here that could go. But you got teams with a lot of cash to spend, and they don't want a developmental project, or they don't want a guy who has no experience in the National Football League. They want to set this up now. And see, this is where the war room of the Panthers has to have many contingency plans. Now, I get it. You got a lot of time in between now and free agency. Free agency and the draft. But you got to have a backup plan when free agency starts. You got to have your mind made up. Are you going to go after a guy like the Chargers or Odafe Away, who racked up 7.5 sacks? And look, you have to realize that when you get guys like this you're probably going to end up paying him a good penny. Now, he hasn't been elite, but he has the potential to be elite because he was stuck in Baltimore. And needless to say, I'm just going to say you might be able to get him at a discount. I'm just not overly sold because he was playing around on the opposite side of Khalil Mack. So you got to wonder what kind of dynamic that is. Is he going to be able to be the number one guy? And that's where I have an issue. And then you also got to look at Joey Bosa, 30-year-old Bosa, whom really has not been, injuries have been the definition of his career. 5-time Pro Bowl, 2017, 2019, 21, 24. I was going to say he's been, underrated because even I would say, what's been going on with him? But maybe it's because Nick Bosa has eaten up so much of his airtime. And you've got guys like Myles Garrett who are out there just killing it. Brian Burns. Being that the Buffalo Bills season just ended, the question remains, are they going to be able to hang on to him for the price tag? I think we might be able to get Bosa at a pretty good rate. The question I have is, you've got Trey Hendrickson out there who's going to command a pretty penny and going to want to go to a contender. The question is, I think we could say Lou Anarumo's defense was more of a 3-4/4-3, but I think ultimately that was what really set Trey Hendrickson off a little bit. Was then you bring in a new defensive coordinator who runs a 3-4, and it was really difficult. It looked like it was difficult for him, but I would have thought, Trey Hendrickson's going to be the guy that's going to pass rush, so he's coming, even though it's a 3-4. Al Golden's going to run that. But I just don't know if Trey is going to fit what we do. And I just don't know. I'm not a big Trey Hendrickson's fan with all the injuries he's had to deal with. I'm just not a big, when I see a guy, when he starts dealing with injuries like he has the last 2 seasons, it may be time to kick the tires on it. You need to just not fool with it, because needless to say, if he gets hurt, what's that going to mean? Now, if we could use him on straight passing downs and tell him that's what he's going to do, and he's okay with it, pay him a cool $20 million, and all he's going to do is be out there on the money down. I'm okay with that. And I know a lot of people will say, what? $20 million a year? He gets paid $1 million a game? He's a closer. And ain't no telling what he can do with Nick Scorton, Princely Emmanuel, and even Pat Jones when he comes back. But this is all going to be predicated on how Avero wants to run the system. I still think we don't blitz enough. I don't think so. And then, I like J.C. Horn blitzing, but the thing is, he comes too daggum late. I think if you're going to send J.C. Horn on the blitz, you put his butt in the slot. Or if he's on the side where nobody is on this side, you change into it and you send him on that backside. That's where I'm at. Now, another position that we're going to talk about is that middle linebacker position. The number one guy that I was talking about in this was Green Bay Packers' Quay Walker. The first rounder has been absolutely great. Now, he's not made any Pro Bowls or first team all pros, but the guy just gets it done. He's a great tackler. He can get to the quarterback when you want him to, but he's the guy that has got to be that Luke Kuechly-ish type guy. Now, he's not like Luke Kuechly. There aren't any Luke Kuechlys out there. But between he and Philadelphia Eagles Nakobe Dean, look, your defensive fronts can be good, but when you got guys like Quay Walker and Nakobe Dean, both of them are 25 years old. Underrated pieces of their defense. Now, I will say this, Quay Walker's probably a better coverage guy than Dean, but when you look at the way the two defenses that they're on, they're key components there. Major components there, and they're former first-round picks. Now, do I think we need to spend in excess of $20 million a year on a linebacker? I think you could possibly get both of these guys anywhere from probably the $12 to $13 million range, which would be fascinating. You could possibly decide whether you want Trevin Wallace to. This would be a battle to see which one wins the job, whether it be Trevin Wallace or Christian Roseboom. A lot of people are saying don't bring Christian Roseboom back. I'm gonna disagree with that. The guy, if he's asked not to be the starter, he's much better. I would even venture to say bring him in on rundowns. Because Trevin Wallace is learning. He's a little bit better in pass coverage, but Christian Roseboom will have something to say to you about his interception that he made. But it's all about getting better, but not overspending. Because ultimately there are a lot of safeties in here, which I didn't do my research yet. I'm really going through there and finding out what I want to do and what guys I feel like are really a good fit for us. Nakobe Dean and Quay Walker, and I think the kid out of Jacksonville. I have to do more research on him. I've heard a lot of people linking Carolina to him. But honestly, I think ultimately this needs to be one of our priorities, that linebacker position. We can get ourselves a linebacker to really back this defensive line up, fill gaps, punish some running backs in the hole. Listen, all this talk about Avero's scheme not working, look, we don't have all the pieces in place. Now, I will say this. Do I think Avero needs to be more aggressive on passing downs? Absolutely. I think ultimately we need to get Isaiah Simmons involved. I think he needs to be a key component. Now, granted, he got in here late. I think he needs to be re-signed, and he needs to be brought in here and utilized efficiently. Heck, it could be talks that we could talk him back into leaving safety. As I said, I'm looking at these two guys at the linebacker position, and there are a couple of safeties that I'm going to go into ultimately, but I will get back with you guys on that. But as I said, the one more position that I wanted to get to was the center position. Now, a lot of you are going to say we need to be loyal to Cade Mays. Listen, I like Cade. I like him a lot. But ultimately, that was the one weak spot other than the tackle position that was being replaced by Robert Hunt's absence. We got two guys out there that could be major additions to this offensive line. Both are Pro Bowlers. They're going to command some change. But Dan Morgan has said over and over, repeatedly, we want to have one of the most dominant group of trench players in the National Football League. Dan Morgan, being a former linebacker, lives and breathes the trenches. If we can nail center Connor McGovern or Baltimore center Tyler Linderbaum, the reason I exhale is the mess that's going on in Baltimore. The reason why Tyler Linderbaum, many of you remember this guy. I remember when he got drafted. The reason this chaos that took place in Baltimore, I see why. Right now, Baltimore is looking like a dysfunctional family, and I'll tell you why. They did not exercise Tyler Linderbaum's fifth-year option. And this is a guy that's made 3 Pro Bowls. 23, 24, and 25.
Stupid!
You fucking idiot.
You some bitches couldn't close an umbrella.
Now, I'm going to go ahead and tell y'all right now. If we can get any of the 3, that'd be Linderbaum, McGovern, and Mays, I'm taking Linderbaum. Now, a lot of people are going to say, why? It ain't no coincidence when the games that Derrick Henry runs well, Linderbaum's a key piece. He is one of the best in the league. And the thing you got to remember about centers is they're only supposed to chip most of the time. Chip or help the guards control their guys and then get off blocks and go down the field. That's most of the time. But he is a mauler. A straight up mauler. We need that kind of presence. Now, I'm not saying McGovern's not that. But we haven't seen Mays be consistently a mauler enough. Now, he's a good, what I like to call depth piece. He gave Austin Corbett a good run, but we all know Corbett's a guard. There's a lot of responsibility that goes into being a center. A lot of people don't realize that. This is why Linderbaum's one of the best. He can do all sections of it. Look, I remember him coming out of Iowa. Dude was a baller. And when I saw, I just knew when he was on the board and it was Ravens' turn to get. I'm like, they finna get him. I don't see a center in the draft with his potential. He's very athletic, very good at sealing blocks. I say that's the guy we go get. If we had to go, let me tell you what my dream scenario would be, guys. Land one of these edge guys and Tyler Linderbaum. That's it. And sign our own free agents back. And a lot of you will say, well, what about the safety position? I don't see, because here's the thing. There are 2 safeties in the draft, and I'll get to it in the next show when we start talking about the draft. There are 2 centers and a tackle. Because ultimately, we could go in the free agency and get a tackle, but why would you do that? I know a lot of you are going to say, but we're not sure what Icky's going to do. Look, if Randy Christensen comes back, and I say we go back, look ahead, and if Icky's ahead of schedule and he's in good position, then we've done the right thing. But ultimately, what you ultimately hope is you're looking at Ekwonu's progress, you're monitoring it carefully, and you're able to look at it and say, okay, we need to take action. If this thing's not, which I honestly think that we maybe should go out and get a tackle, because I've heard so many people say it's a 6 to 9 month process just for the ability to get up and walk again. Not to mention, they say it takes usually a full year before an athlete is back to where they were, per se. I'm not sure that we want to throw Icky back in the fire, in late October or late or early November if he's not ready. I think ultimately we give him the full year, just like we did with Jonathan Brooks. Even though that was an ACL and that's a patellar tendon, you want to give it an opportunity to not rush back. So I would say, realistically, I would say, we may have to come to a crossroad and figure out what we're going to do. Maybe we get a guy on a 2 to 3 year spell and then we move Ekwonu, or whatever we decide. We decide that with Taylor Moton here, we move one of them inside and go at it that way. I mean, but ultimately, we don't need to sacrifice next year because then Bryce will be getting paid big dollars next year. I think this team, if we do what we're supposed to in free agency, we've got the cash to move. I don't think we fool with draft capital. I think ultimately, we're going to have to be aggressive at some point in free agency. There are some guys I like, but I also see some guys that we may have to part ways with. I mean, we've got some things we've got to think about. Because, I mean, even Trayvon Merrick, he's a good box safety, but we ultimately had some weaknesses back there. Maybe Lathan Ransom's going to come along. And we also see there are some safeties coming up, in which I'll discuss on the next show. But Linderbaum needs to be a priority. Jalen Phillips, if we can get him, away needs to be a priority. Trey Hendrickson, if he's willing to listen, a lot of people are talking about trading for Max Crosby. I don't think that's needed because that's going to set us back. A lot of people are going to say, well, you need to trade. Look, if we were just Max Crosby away from winning the Super Bowl, you do it. You make a move like that, just like the Houston Texans did when they the same year they drafted C.J. Stroud, they traded the house to go get Will Anderson. I don't think we are that player away. Now, if we make enough plays or moves in free agency, like getting Linderbaum or maybe getting Connor McGovern, or maybe we get a safety in free agency or that linebacker that we need. If we can get two of those, I'll say this out loud, Panther Nation. If we can get Linderbaum, Dean, or Walker, okay, I'm listening. I'd say trade the first pick next year and trade the second this. I know the Raiders ain't gonna go for it. They're gonna want the first this year and the second next year. But we got to make a good decision. Max Crosby's carrying a tall number. So I hope y'all remember that too. Because we talking about Linderbaum and we talking about McGovern. Or we talking about Dean or Walker. That's going to be a pretty penny. It's going to be a pretty penny. And then I think he's 29 years old. It's going to be a pretty penny, y'all. But guys, let me know what you think. Let me know who's currently on the roster, whom you guys think we need to go all in on. Do you agree with who I think we need to go all in on? Is there any other guys that you think we need to go all in on? What do you think about the players that I said we needed to extend? Yeah, guys, you play GM. You tell me if you like what I did or if you think there's some other players out there that we need to consider. You think center should be a priority in free agency? Do you think the linebacker position needs to be? Do you think edge rusher needs to be a priority in free agency? And tell me what you think about Max Crosby. Keep in mind what numbers we're working with here. But make sure if you like the show, you hit that thumbs up icon, as well as if you want to continue to see my content and check us out, make sure you hit that subscribe button and hit that bell notification so that you can get all my episodes as they drop. Also, I've got reels coming out on emergency happenings too, guys. When I'm not able to get to my studio and spit these episodes out, I will do emergency reels on my cell phone to let you guys know what the ins and outs are of what's going on. Finally, make sure you go over to my Instagram so you can check me out at Mr. CeeLo and keep up with all the shenanigans that I will be caught up in. And don't forget to go over to the Facebook page at Growlin' and Prowlin'. Also, joining the Facebook group of Growlin' and Prowlin'. I'm trying to be more active over there this season, you guys. I have not been active the last 2 seasons. I apologize for that. But until the next time, don't forget to leave your mark while prowling the airwaves and growling out. Keep pounding.